Couple of scenarios I'm going to play out here for you as we go through time. I'm going to try to go on over to share this post across some platforms. We're doing a kind of a different thing tonight where we're not just on Facebook and streaming on our website and our app, but also on YouTube as well. And let's see if I can grab that. There it is. We'll share it over onto my page. Well, share it to a page. There it is. There's that guy. And share. Okay, that way we'll get as many people in here as we can. And I'll try to follow your comments along here. Let's see. All right, looks like everything's up and running. Okay, so a couple things going on. We have a flash flood warning. All right. You may see me dip down every once in a while and do stuff like that because we have different warnings that are going to be coming out from time to time in parts of the state that I'm going to be kind of trying to follow in and out of all that. All right, so you see a severe thunderstorm warning west of Columbus back in Alabama. You see another one up there west of Atlanta and some flood warning stuff going on. Now, when you look at that and think there's a high risk out there, this is a pretty good scenario. We've seen fluctuations in the intensity of all this, though, and let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to zoom this out some, and let's go back, say, 6 hours. All right. Now, watch and see how things have changed. Now, first of all, you're going to see that our lightning data doesn't begin until right here. So I don't want you to think, oh, there was no lightning with those storms, and then it just showed up. This is just our grid, our data box, kind of in something like this. I can't remember exactly loosely. But so that's the reason why the lightning just starts showing up there. But trust me, there was plenty of lightning back here. All right, so earlier in the day, you see all these little cells that are out in front. We call those discrete cells. I call them little renegades. They kind of do what they want out in front, prefrontal. It's before the main line comes through. And we'll see these sometimes with some rotation, and they're doing their own thing. And that's what we saw during the afternoon with numerous tornado warnings earlier in Alabama. As we've been going through the night, and this happens sometimes, we're seeing things starting to line up and becoming more linear, and it's becoming more of a straight line wind event and kind of taken over in that fashion. But there's a possibility that it could stay that way and become a linear sort of thing, or this front line right here could begin to fall apart, which it is weakening some, and then you see back building behind it. And sometimes this can kind of take over, not necessarily as the same sharp line as what it was, but this line dies and then this becomes the second line, which becomes the real line. Does that make any sense? So it's like, you know, here's a line, but if that one starts to fall apart, then it may start to kind of form like this. And then we're still almost on the same kind of timing as we were. So sometimes, and this could be what's happening here, sometimes you can get tricked into looking at it thinking, oh, this is going to be here so much earlier, and this event's going to be over so much sooner. But sometimes it just, I've seen it where it just evolves like that, where that front edge comes in, falls apart, and then all of a sudden, because it's run away so far from the actual front, that then everything has to kind of sharpen back up again behind it because the main line is run too far out ahead of everything. All right, so that may be a little confusing, but let's zoom in. Let's go over to our local radar here, and there's a tornado watch, which has been out for a little while. It's for the western half of our viewing area, kind of Macon west. It doesn't mean that we're going to see a ton of tornadoes. It's just really kind of better safe than sorry. Just kind of cover the bases. It's overnight situation into the early morning hours. Let's keep everybody, you know, kind of making sure they're paying attention, because I don't really want to downplay it and say, oh, this is not becoming what it was or anything, but I don't want to oversell it either, if that makes any sense. And it's a tough line to walk on something like this because so far so good, and we hope it stays that way, but these things can sometimes change on you a little bit. The speed, at least as of now, of this front line has it coming into our western counties within the next hour and a half, maybe? Hour and a half, somewhere, you know, close to 2 a.m. All of a sudden it's knocking on Thomaston and Butler. Unless, again, I'm trying not to repeat myself, but unless this front edge starts to fall apart, then we'll have to wait for a newly developed line that is back toward the west there. So as we're talking here, you can kind of just, I mean, it's mainly just rain, but you can see things still kind of stretching out behind all of this. Still think this is the first razor's edge coming across. We'll see what it does to things and see what it does to the environment, but it's basically just a wait and see. Do I still think it's going to be 7 a.m. when we see things? No. I think we're kind of off that timing now, and unfortunately the models are having a hard time with that as well. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's a look at the high-res model. All right, so keep in mind where we were just a minute ago, where that line is pretty much right here, right? Well, the initialization, the beginning of this model is back here. So we're already off there on the timing. And you go forward, I just don't see this being 4 in the morning before we start to see some of this stuff, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 in the morning before this starts to come in, unless what I said a minute ago happens and that front edge falls apart and then everything starts to build farther behind it in Alabama and then a new line forms. And so we're kind of back on our time frame again. We'll just have to see. I'm hoping that the first scenario is right, that somebody says, wait, so it's 2 rounds. Tiffany, not necessarily 2 rounds. And I wish I could be more clear on it, but clearly this has not exactly played out the way it was going to play out tonight. So, I mean, still things are possible as we go through the overnight for this to kind of crank back up a little bit more as we head toward the overnight morning hours, or it just could continue to kind of fall apart like this. And I know that's very vague, but it's not, what's the best way to say it? It's not playing by the rules. It's not playing by what the models were showing. So I don't know if all this timing is still going to be there. Let's plan on earlier. Let's plan on starting to move into Thomaston, Butler in the next hour and a half and see how it goes. Maybe that is the edge. Maybe that's the line. Maybe that's the line that comes through and it's a bust. I'll take a bust. That'd be fine. You know, maybe it just ends up being gusty winds and maybe a severe thunderstorm warning here or there. That would be the best case scenario. But you still have to, you know, every once in a while, even some of these have had a little rotation in them. You still have to watch for that. Trust me, I'd love to be able to give you a much clearer answer than this, but this has a lot of people kind of scratching their heads tonight. Let's zoom in on this line and you can see, notice how things bow out right here. There's a remnants of a severe thunderstorm warning right there. So that's gusty winds that'll be coming through Columbus in a little bit. But if it stays like this is totally manageable. If this is the way it is coming through, it's not a big deal. But I just watch for yourself. Watch, if nothing else, watch with the lightning. Watch how that's really starting to tail off here. So this thing is kind of, let's say that the cold front is its parent. This thing is kind of running away from its parent now. And so, you know, back here is where all the forcing the energy is. So this is where we still may see stuff kind of redevelop through here, which we are seeing rain back there, but we're not seeing it strong or anything. And unfortunately, you know, I could go to like a model and say, well, here's what the high-res model's showing. Here's what the RPM's showing. They're showing different, well, let me show you. I'll show you the RPM just to give you an idea of what that would look like if it fell apart. Let's see if it's still there. All right, initialization is off again. Timing's off. How do we know that? Because the line of storms is right here. And this has everything at this time right back here. So there's already way off. So as we go forward, notice, let's just say let's just take that as a scenario as I talked about and say that this was the front edge that we're seeing now and that fell apart. Then we start to see things redeveloping back here. These are all just scenarios, but see how it starts to come back together again, and now you're back on your original timetable again, if that happens. Still looking at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Broken, but still somewhat of a line coming through 8, 9 o'clock, 9 to 10. And really not looking all that impressive past 10, 11 o'clock. So I know I've seen a ton of questions on here. Need something a little more fine-tuned. Got to know something a little more concrete. I just don't have it. And there's not going to be anybody that's going to have it on this one tonight. It's unfortunately just a wait and see, but the good news is we're not having to wait as long because it's moving so fast. So I'll leave it on this picture for a minute, and you can, just keep an eye back here. You know, if this does fall apart, then you would think, all right, this is going to start really cranking up as the new line. We'll see if that happens. Other than that, this could be the line, and it rolls through, and a little bit of a gust and some rain and a rumble of thunder, and that's about it. But you got to watch this stuff back in southwest Alabama too. Remember this with systems too. If you watch them long enough and you watch a radar loop, it can almost kind of put you in a trance about it, and I'll show you why. Everything is moving this way, and so your eyes are kind of looking, following everything going west to east like that. So your tendency is to go directly left to directly right and say that that's what's there. That's the motion of the line, but a lot of times, your individual cells are moving like this. So you have to watch usually south and west. Usually look down and left on a radar to kind of get an idea of what's heading our way. If that's the case, then this kind of stuff is what we're watching for to eventually build in and start to move in our direction. But again, that's not even that impressive down there right now either. The longer this looks unimpressive, the better. And each time I look at it, it looks more and more unimpressive. But I've seen it before tonight do that, and then all of a sudden we've had a few severe thunderstorm warnings and a tornado warning along it. And we can go in and look at all this stuff over here, and you can see not seeing rotation in any of this. I know this is just a bunch of red and green moving along, but I'm looking for things that would show up as something rotating, and I'm not seeing anything at all. And we're about to cross over the state line around Columbus here, almost into LaGrange now. So we're way ahead of schedule. What I was doing on the 11 o'clock news tonight was, and this is, again, assuming that that line is the line. And I know that sounds like I'm really repeating myself, but this could be the line, but you can see it starting to break apart and die. Either that's it, and that's all we're going to see, or there's going to be redevelopment back here. Let's take this line, though, for timing purposes. Start where that loop is. We'll go over here and drag out. All right, so that's 100 miles, and earlier it was drawing about 150 miles swath. That's 100 miles. This is a 3-hour loop. So let's go forward from there another 100 miles. And so you're talking in the Macon area, and if that's 3 hours, already almost past Macon at that point. So that would be 3:30 or so, 3:43. Then you back that up, you'd probably be looking at 2 something, maybe around 2 or so would probably, again, a little after 2, entering our western counties. But again, and this is why I'll be doing probably multiple Facebook Lives tonight. We're also following this stuff down here. And again, the models kind of hint at that. Some back building back here. And starting to kind of replace itself. So again, this could be how it plays out. We may be talking about 2 in the morning, but that's when that line gets to Upson County and Taylor County and totally falls apart, and then we're back resetting our watches again, waiting on the new batch, which is there 5, 6 a.m., 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. So we're right back to our time schedule again. It just depends on really what happens over this next hour. To me, I mean, in my opinion, you could ask a bunch of different meteorologists, you may get different answers, but that's the way I'm seeing it. All right, let's see. Just looking over some stuff here while you watch that. Let me take you back, actually. Let's put you on that map so you can check that out for a minute. So, will the 4 out of 5 risk be lowered for eastern counties? Justin, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that yet. That's done from the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman, Oklahoma. And I know that our National Weather Service office in Peachtree City has been in contact with them all through tonight, as they always are. But they're all hands on deck in Peachtree City, and they've been really in contact back and forth with Norman, trying to figure out, what's the next step on this. And again, I mean, that I just showed you on that high-res model, the stuff building back toward the west as this falls apart, I mean, clearly that's kind of what's happening here, but it may end up being just rain with a rumble of thunder. Just because it looked ominous on this map doesn't necessarily mean that it's all severe. It could just be rain and some gusty winds coming through. I have a hard time seeing it totally just take off again in some wild, severe fashion overnight into an early morning after the way it's been played over the past few hours. But I mean, I guess anything can happen, but I just would have a hard time seeing that, but we'll be prepared for either way. But I mean, a lot of this could end up just being the rain that we're seeing on the radar back here. And there's a difference in this and that. If you're looking at this is just rain. Maybe a little bit of a breeze. You're looking at the dark red, sharp edges, bowing segments, hooks, things like that. Back here, this is tame. And maybe it stays that way. Let's see where let me take a look at some of our features and see where our, front is. Yeah, it's a little confusing if you look at it that way. Our front is actually way back toward the west. All right, this may end up being nothing, but I could see a little bit more redevelopment there, like that's trying to happen. I just think a lot of this is already washed over. So again, the kind of stuff you see down here, Montgomery and south and west, that might be something that kind of moves in here a little later. This still has a little bit of a bite to it, but no warnings on it. I'm hoping for a bust. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping this turns out to be, it looked really bad and just didn't turn out to materialize that way. That's the hope. We'll just have to see how it goes. I know the folks that predict this stuff are not hoping for a bust. As far as, I mean, anyone would want a bust. They don't want bad weather. But as far as like, you work really hard on trying to figure out how this is going to go. And then if it doesn't go that way, then you have to scratch your head like, I wonder why that didn't happen that way. But it's still early, folks. I mean, unfortunately, things can change. Rel Curry, Ben Jones, 24. No thanks. You're right, Pamela. I can't totally predict all this. Just taking some shots in the dark here, literally. I like that question, Walter. So if this were not your job, you going to sleep on this one? No, because I'm still curious to see how this is going to play out. And somebody else answered or asked earlier, do I get anxious and stuff like this? No, in my younger days it did, but it's more of a curiosity to me. I want to see how it plays out and see, if the thinking was right. And I don't know, it's just fascinating. It just still shows that it's one of these things, you never have it totally figured out, so that's kind of the challenge of it. Everybody keeps asking about the sleeves. Yeah, they're up. They've been up all during the evening hours. Whenever you have an elevated level 3, 4, and even 5 back in Alabama, that will get the sleeves up. It's very rare to see those kind of things. It's probably even more rare to see it playing out like this. So far, so good, though, but we still got a ways to go. Things can still change, so watch it like a hawk. I realize our area is over here, but we don't have anything going on right now, so I'm really trying to investigate how this stuff is morphing over here in Alabama. This is basically all we do when we're babysitting radar. Back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes in these events you can turn around and look somewhere and then come back and it's something totally new has popped up. Fast changing situation. I'm still watching back here just to see if this looks any different. So far it's pretty tame. Looking over a couple of things here. All right, nothing still about the same here, nothing new. Go over the high-res model again. Again, assuming, even though the timing is off on this, that this front stuff fades out, that this could take over, and that doesn't mean that all of this is severe. This could be just rain and some rumbles of thunder, or we may have to keep an eye on a couple of these in there. And again, that would put us back on our original timing, close to it, a little bit earlier, 5 to 6 as opposed to 6 to 7 if this plays out like this. And then still through the morning hours tomorrow. Hopefully as a non-event. That would be fantastic. I hear the back door opening. That would be probably Courtney Jacobazzi. Hello, Court. Welcome to Facebook Live.
Thank you.
Courtney just walking in. And so there are 2 babysitters now. Yeah, surely. Everybody on Facebook says hello.
Hello. Good morning, good evening.
And we're on YouTube this time too as well.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, come on.
Man.
How fast do you think this storm is moving? Well, that one's kind of hard to figure out there, Shannon. I mean, there's the storms that are out in front. As far as the whole mass of it, we don't really know if this is the front edge of the end-all be-all line or not yet.
I'm going to go make my hair presentable and then...
Courtney says she's going to go make her hair presentable.
Tough job.
I try to never do that because I set the bar low every day when I come in.
The less effort, the better.
Yeah.
Smart idea.
Look at how nice all you are saying hello to Court. Why is your family in the front line of storms? Good question, Matthew. Why is it tornadoes usually on the front line as opposed to in the middle of a storm? Is it because the atmosphere is more? Yeah, it's right there along that edge. Usually is where you're going to get the biggest fight. Either it's going to be straight line winds or tornado. It doesn't mean that you can't have either one of them behind it, like in this situation. Right now, this is the main show in town, but if all this fizzles out, you can start to see things build back, like keeping an eye on this stuff in southwest Alabama here. Sometimes this will come in and chew up all the atmosphere, and then we'll see just, a whole new dynamic starting to develop here. I don't really know of a great way to put that other than just having watched it over the years. Sometimes you see things redevelop. Sometimes it washes the atmosphere over. In certain situations, we have enough dynamics out there right now still with the wind shear involved and everything to still spin a couple of these out there. It's just a matter of can we get them going again? Not that we want to. Yeah, this stuff's booking it. It's already now only 30 miles from Upson County, so. And good news, I mean, take a look at it. It's, except for that, up in northwest Georgia, there are no warnings along any of this. Let me put it to you this way. If this were a situation on any other given day and I was looking at something like this, I'd think, all right, well, this is kind of fizzling out. This is not going to be a big deal. But just given the dynamics that are involved and the kind of risk that we've had today, just still you kind of want to, watch it. Oh, Michael, we just want to see Courtney. I'm being asked to leave. Walter, isn't our weather usually like a toned down Columbus, fall line cities and all that? It is interesting. Sometimes I can't count how many times I've seen it just fall apart or slam on brakes. Excuse me, that wasn't me. That was the National Weather Service. Let's see what they're saying. That is expiring a severe thunderstorm warning that is in northwest Georgia that has nothing to do with us. But that warning that we saw up there, the only warning that we had, that one's even gone now. That expired at 1 o'clock. Looking at the RPM run, which is still waiting on some new stuff on that. That is still not taking into account really what's happening now. Again, this may or may not be the timing of this. So I don't know if that helps us to look at that. I just like to go back to it and look occasionally just to see what it was thinking, waiting on the new one. That's just significant weather advisories in northwest Georgia means it's less than severe thunderstorm criteria. I don't see anything rotating anywhere. Again, you're probably like, why are you looking way down here? Because, again, how things kind of move. Just looking, still looking good, folks. I mean, this is a good trend if this continues. Come on, radar's hanging up. It is amazing how fast this stuff has really sped up. I mean, this edge right here was not supposed to be heading in toward Thomaston until about 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. You can see the challenge. Oh, I think I know what's going on. I think our computers are doing some updating, unfortunately, at a time usually when there's nobody here. Sometimes we'll see this doing a lot of updating. It's got me hung up where I can't move a lot of stuff. Hopefully that'll cycle through here shortly without any interruptions, but I'm unable to. There we go. There it moved. Computers, all the backing up and all that stuff happens during the overnight hours. All right, if you're looking at this radar shot and you're thinking, that looks pretty weird, there's nothing back in Alabama anymore, back, off toward the bottom left. Just because I'm on our local radar, so it doesn't shoot that far out. Now I moved over into an Alabama radar and you can pick it up a little bit better. Now that stuff in Monroeville, Alabama is looking kind of curious to me. Let's see. If the radar will let me do it, I'm trying to look at velocity. Just trying to get an idea, see if the things are recovering and kind of taking back off again. All right, I don't see anything new. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to, I think, probably shut this Facebook Live off, but I will be back in just a little bit. Now that Courtney has her hair all fixed, we can coordinate on what we think is happening here. I can go make some coffee, and then we'll start up another Facebook Live coming up in just a little bit. So don't worry, we will be back. We're just regroup here for a second, and then we'll start it up all over again. So, all righty. Collinsworth, those in the booth, you are still in there?
You still awake?
Yeah, we'll be back in a little while.